Good morning. It's morning coffee. So in keeping with my thought yesterday around drawing a card from my oracle deck, today's card is keep your dreams alive. And I look at this card. It's got a moon child. It's got stars. It's got doves. It's got solar system, it's got crystals, it's got a lot of things on it. In fact, I'm going to write about that in my journal, I think, later today. But one of the things that I immediately think about is it really goes in reference to this book, two, of course, because I can't read one book at once. That's not my way. I'm reading two books by this author, Anthony Peake, and he has the Cheating the Ferryman theory that he's developed around what happens after death, and this daemon theory. The daemon is part of the Cheating the Ferryman theory. And having had a near-death event myself, an experience, and we all have had deja vus. He classifies this as a psychic event that you experience in your life. I am very intrigued by the theory, and initially on hearing him on a podcast from a fellow YouTube individual, I thought, well, this is really, really nice. He's bringing together the science behind a lot of our psychic ethereal phenomenon. And I love that when you can do that, because it really grounds these events into the material realm. However, my higher self or daemon immediately raises a tremendous amount of questions around these theories, because in his theory, if I'm understanding it correctly, you're never dying because of the dopamine and glutamate that are released as you approach death by your brain. And so time slows down to this space in which you never die. The body does, but you never die. And you end up in this continual life review, if you will, that as you reach the end of the next life review, you go on repeat. And so you end up in this simulation, if you will, of infinite repeats. And so you live a life, and then you end up in this non-stop cyclical repeat simulation of life after life after life after life. The same life. Not a reincarnated life in another body, living again different lessons and learning different things, but the same life you just lived on repeat. But in each repeat, because your daemon or higher self knows what the pitfalls are, or what mistakes, errors, what things you did that we could do better, it intercedes and says, don't do that, or move from this lane to that lane, or don't take a left, take a right, or stop now move forward, to avoid death, to avoid all these various traumas to your body, so that you can have a different outcome. Right there's where my first hand raise happens, because if, for instance, I will tell you an instance that happened to me in which I would relate to his daemon, and he calls the lower self the Eidolon, where I would relate to this daemon Eidolon concept. I was in my early 20s, and I had been out with my friends drinking, and I was headed home from the bar, and I was going up the freeway, and I always drive in the fast lane on the left-hand side, straight up the highway. And I heard a voice in my mind, almost audibly, slow down and move over to the left. So I did. No reason to do so. The freeway was completely empty, but I did. Slowed down and moved over to the left. Almost instantaneously, within a few seconds of my having taken this action, a car jumped the freeway median and landed in the far left lane, exactly where I would have been had I not slowed down and moved over. I would have died. So from Anthony Peake's theory in Cheating the Ferryman, I avoided death because I listened to my daemon. And so I lived on. Now, here's where my hand raise comes up. At that point, I am no longer living the old life because I would have died right there. Right? So now my daemon does not know what is going to take place going forward. It doesn't know, because now we're on a whole new trajectory. We went right instead of left. If we'd have gone left, I'd have now been dying. And into the whole time expansion, let's do a repeat, right? I have to finish reading the book, and then I'll find out, and I can bring that back to you. But, that becomes a problem for me with the theory. If I, at the crossroad, don't do the same thing, and I take the advice of my daemon and I go a new path, how does the daemon know what the opportunities are in the new life, right? Because after that was when I met my ex-husband, and I remember standing in the doorway in our home in New York City, and he was in the bathtub because he used to get out of the bed after 1,500 times. Of course, I'm exaggerating, of listening to the alarm, and then he'd go fall asleep in the bathtub. And I remember this was right before we got married. We got married in November, and this was in September. And I remember standing in the doorway and going, we cannot, and literally the thought was not I, it was we. We cannot live the rest of our lives with this man. And then, of course, I made all the excuses for why I was going to go ahead and proceed with the marriage. Everybody has cold feet, yada, 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 right? There was no way I was calling my father to come get me from New York City and take me back to Denver, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, there again was we're standing at the crossroads. And instead of going right and not marrying him, which was what my daemon would have been trying to get me to do, I went left. Now, how did it know at that point this was a crossroads? Because we hadn't been there before, in theory, because I should have died back a few years prior when the car jumped the road, right? My initial argument is we're on multiple time tracks, and so it had to save me from the first error to have to get to me to the second error to get me to the, who knows how many lifetimes we've gone through on this one. But it's an interesting and provocative thought process that these books are bringing up, and I'm really intrigued by them. And so anyway, I wanted to share them with you. As I think on this card, keep your dreams alive, keep your dreams alive, the daemon would speak to us through our dreams. And for me, that particular card is not so much about my dreams in terms of when I'm asleep as much as my dreams, my joys, my passions, my what do you want to do with life, but also be aware of my dreams, what comes forth from my dream state, and pay attention. Because I think there is any time that I am drawn to a particular author and what they have to say, there is truth to be gained from those writings. Whether everything they're saying is truth for me or not, it is to be determined as I read the works. But there is definitely truth, and so I would encourage you as well to become a detective reader of nonfiction works. Read it, take those things that resonate, question those things that don't really resonate, and do your own research and learn, because your soul or daemon or higher self or however you label it is trying to guide you through this web of life that we are living, whether it's a simulation that we're going through, which I'm not sure I'm convinced, although it does sound fairly plausible, or what. But at the end of the day, the goal is to become a person of higher love, higher emotional intelligence, to tap into that space where we have in ourselves our highest interest at heart, which in turn has the highest interest of others at heart, which in turn has the highest interest of entire humanity at heart. And we raise one ship, which raises the rest, which raises the entire humanity. And we can all rise and become better. And so those are my thoughts this Tuesday morning. I've talked a little longer than I intended to, I think, but that's okay. If it brings something to the surface for you and you gain something from it, then that's the whole point. So have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.